Good afternoon. I'm speaking today, unfortunately, in outrage at the last minute and secretive decision to build an annex at the Lincoln School over our beloved neighborhood playground. You may remember me from a previous meeting when I testified at the September meeting that if Lincoln got funded, it meant that the facilities master plan was being swept aside. Now our concerns have been realized, even worse than we could have imagined, and now with the additional loss of our playground. So I will appeal to your sensibilities as former children yourselves. This playground space is extremely important to all city children. In our neighborhood, space is especially at a premium. Every corner of open space is heavily used, and any park supervisor could tell you. The mayor and the first lady talk about exercise and our national fight against obesity. And in the last LSC election, I was reelected to our LSC on the platform entitled Real Playgrounds for our Neighborhood Children. It was at my urging last fall that our LSC amended its demand for the space at Children's to include a ground level playground. It is untrue that this LSC has ever approved building over the Lincoln playground. In fact, not once in the past 2 years has there been a whisper of any plan to build over the playground. It was taken off the table 2 years ago in acknowledgement of the importance of the playground to our community. It has never been much mentioned publicly since then. It's not been in the Alderman's newsletters. It has not been in the Alderman's website. It's not been mentioned at a single LSC meeting. In fact, with respect to building anything at all at Lincoln,
Ms. Vickery, excuse me.
we were promised that it would appear in the CPS budget, and Lincoln never appeared in the CPS budget. So it's hard to say that this was a transparent process because it's been so far off the public view, and that's the most disappointing part of this, especially how it was announced. If it was so popular in our community, why the Fort Knox level of security?
Thank you, Ms. Vickery. Our next speaker, please.
Hello, Admiral Board members. My name is Mary Jane Gomez. I'm a special education teacher at Belmont Cragen Early Childhood Center. I'm here with a group of parents, staff, and LSC and community members to hear you respond to our petition that I was presented to you last month to make the Belmont Cragen Early Childhood Center a standalone school. I would like to inform you about our current status. Unfortunately, our principal has been unable to find time to meet with us, and our early childhood has been asked to postpone 2 meeting dates that were set. At this time, I would like to express the staff's concern. The principal has not been present at our school since September 27th, when she presented the budget of $19,000 for 340 students, and that was her third visit to our school. The funds for our center are loaded directly to our elementary unit, and every year we have to beg for funding, even though our students generate sufficient funds, which are not benefiting them. Our preschool students are enrolled at the elementary unit, but physically attend the early childhood center located 2 miles away. As professionals, we do not have a principal who is our instructional leader every day. She does not have time for our students, parents, and staff. Actually, most of our parents have never even met her. As teachers in a different building, we are not able to participate in diverse professional development opportunities offered at the elementary building. Last week, a few teachers were observed by the assistant principal for 5 to 7 minutes, and these informal evaluations were not uploaded into the system, and we are concerned that once again, we will be receiving a score of inability to rate. We firmly believe that if the board funds a principal position devoted solely to our Reggio-inspired NACE accredited school, we will be flourish and thrive and go beyond excellence. Again, we are not proposing something new to CPS. This model of early childhood center already exists in the Belmont Thomas Center and the Barbara Vick Center. The cost of CPS is minimum, and it will maximize the potential of our center to fulfill the public education rights of our students. Last month, we did not receive an answer. We still would like to know what are the steps to become a standalone school and who we can contact to initiate this process.
Ms. Gomez.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. I know that the issue's been brought before us before. The management is aware of it, and I know because I asked them, they are working on trying to respond to your question and issues. And so, you're not being ignored. They're trying to address it and come up with the proper solution. So don't feel like you're being ignored. You're not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next speaker, please, Elizabeth Coutney. As she approaches the microphone, the next speaker then will be speaker number 37, Okima Lewis, followed by speaker 39, Derek Harris, and then speaker number 40, Alvin Green.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Coatney. Thank you to the board for listening to my opinions. I am a member of the Logan Square Community Facilities Council. In a society where so many children are facing the dangers of obesity, I am incensed that Funston, Ames, and other school buildings are selling juice drinks loaded with sugar in their vending machines. In addition, I am also incensed that CPS is insisting on going forward with their plans to turn Ames Middle School into a military academy, when the community has spoken so strongly against it. The parents of Logan Square want a choice of where to send their children. If they don't want to send them to a military school, what are the other options? What will happen to the children who opt out when their local community school has been taken away? And why Ames? With the closings last year of 50 schools, can't another location be found for a military school? Does this have something to do with the fact that Alderman Maldonado owns numerous properties within his ward? Will the military school make his property values and rents go up? Is this why it's so important that Ames be the chosen site? Why Ames? Ames was developed in 1998 by community activists for their children of their community. They have worked hard to obtain grant money to open a much-needed health clinic at Ames. They have a nationally recognized parent mentor program at Ames and a wonderful after-school program. Why Ames? They say that Ames is underutilized, but the enrollment at Ames was never a problem until
Ms. County?
Alderman Maldonado
Ms. County?
and his cronies
Ms. County,
changed the
excuse me.
enrollment boundaries in a backroom deal with his cronies. Why Ames? Maybe it's because it's a beautiful new facility with a large field for cadets to march on. Maybe people in power don't
Thank
feel
you,
that
Ms.
these
County.
children can go to
Thank you.
college and be
Our next speaker,
professionals,
please.
and that their only option is to be a soldier.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please, Okema Lewis. Last call for Okema Lewis. Moving on to the next speaker, please, Derek Harris. Last call. Moving on to Alvin Green, please. Our next speaker then will be speaker number 42, Ramon Cervantes, followed by speaker 47, Denise Weston, followed by speaker 50, Rosemary Vega, followed by speaker 51, Jadea Brown, please. Mr. Cervantes, please.
Good evening, Mr. President. I hope I have a better luck with you with the last 4 presidents and members of the board. They have wasted 30 years of the youth of this country. The youth of this country, the Mexican youth, is born in the ghettos of Chicago, and they have never been in Michigan Avenue. May 3rd, 1974, for my first edition, I'm an executive chef, Ramon Cervantes, found the publisher and editor of the Spanish newspaper Don Quixote. On my first edition, I told the world who I was, where I was coming from, and what I was going to do. I said that I was going to select the best men to govern us. I have fulfilled this. I have at least 35 public elected officials that I have supported and got elected, including Bill Clinton, Vicente Fox, Alberto Cárdenas Jimenez from Governor of Jalisco, and the last one, Mr. Obama, to my regret. Yes, to my regret. I invited you, like I have, to every school to join me on Michigan Avenue. I select Michigan Avenue because it's the best avenue to present our heritage and teach our kids that the world belongs to them, not the ghetto where they were born. The difference between the ghetto where they were born and Michigan Avenue is that the Michigan business people put the money back into the community. The Mexican community, they get wealthy. I got more than 100 millionaires, Mexicans, that they refuse to support my effort. I set my goal, and I come back from Mexico because I lost one of my sons. He died at the 55 years. Just like my brother,
Mr. Cervantes?
who died in 1971.
Mr. Cervantes?
Just
can
1
you-
second, I will.
Thank you.
In 1971, Marcos Cervantes died in a game of football between San and Kennedy High School. His legacy, a proper insurance for the youth of this country. I had three House Joint resolutions from the City Council, from the Board of Education, and House Joint Resolution number 33.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
citizens refused
Cervantes.
to recognize him.
Our next speaker,
I invite
please.
you to join me. Let's, joven, soy un joven líder mexicano joven, y no puedo perder.
Thank you, Mr.
¿Por qué?
Cervantes. Our next speaker,
¿Por qué?
please.
Porque tengo fe, valor, entusiasmo y orgullo de mi raza.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Denise Weston.
Hello, my name is Denise Weston. I'm here to tell you about CPS elementary school abuse and selling illegal IEPs to parents and using them in parenting courts against parents that have healthy household, healthy children going to school. Illegally put my child as a disability and got my child running and acting in a disability school. Turn around, teacher beat my kid. I got police reports on your principal for selling an illegal IEP to a daddy, and then turn around, form an illegal IEP to use against a parent, a healthy parent. Call illegal DCFS, illegal policemen, all in my household, all on my children, all on my family. I've been here for years begging the board. I've been up and down the stairs calling Mr. Nelson, your law departments, and everybody. They're familiar with me. Oh, yes, they are. I've been here fighting, putting my child on the bus, been crying, been abused, been beaten, been just going through a lot with Chicago Public School. Near North Elementary School. Y'all just closed that school. Over there, beating kids, chastising kids, bending their arms. One teacher beat my child, sending pictures of marks and abuse and just marks and police reports and hospital bills and you name it, it's just going on every day. Now, I was told that my child cannot be removed to safety and proper and get the proper right of his constitutional right of a fair education. Why? Because of an illegal IEP. Now, I got an IEP
Ms.
meeting
Weston?
with someone.
Ms. Weston, excuse me, can you please conclude?
Yes, I'm here to ask you all, what is it that you all gonna do to stop the endangerment of my child life going to Chicago Public School?
Thank you, Ms. Weston.
Hi, you must have the easiest job in the world, Barbara Burt Bennett. You call something underutilized and you take it. And I'm wishing right now that I could use the same magic on you. Because right now, you're underutilized to all of us. You know, do you know the mess you left Chopin and Lowell Elementary by closing Lafayette? But you don't care. You have not touched the schools. You have not been there. You don't care that there's a lot of special education students being mistreated. You just come and you sop something, you know? And Vitali, you should be ashamed of yourself sitting up here telling a parent to get their facts straight. Because we did organize. We did move. And guess what? You still took Lafayette. You still didn't care. So it should be you getting your facts straight up here. Okay, you. You have guts to talk like that to a parent when they're up here telling you what we need. You tell us, you ask us, what do we need? What do we want? Where were we 20 years ago? We're here now. And we chose public education, yet you still putting charters everywhere. It doesnent matter. Prosser right now is hurting. It's hurting. You know what you did? You're going to put a charter school right in front of it. Instead of helping the school that already exists. You know, when you sit here and say these schools are failing, you're failing yourself because you're at the top. So if you can't tell your people what to do, and if you can't help our schools succeed without closing doors and opening others, turn around, it doesn't help. It doesn't help, because if we tell you what we want and what we need and you don't listen, what's the board? What is this? What is this? But guess what? We got our own board going. It's called the People's Board.
Ms. Vega,
And we're gonna get it
Ms.
going,
Vega.
and guess what? We're gonna make changes, Barbara Byrd Bennett, and definitely they're not gonna include you. Well, they will include you because we don't want you here anymore.
Our next speaker, please, Jadea Brown. Last call for Jadea Brown. Moving on to speaker number 52, please, John Mohar, followed by speaker 55, Rosa Antunes, 57, Aurea Alterio, and last speaker, Rosita Shatunda, 58. Last call for John Mohar. Last call for Rosa Antunes.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rosa Antunes y soy líder de la comunidad de Belmont Cragen. Pertenezco a la Organización de Comunidades Unidas por la Calidad de la Educación. Y yo vengo representando mi escuela, que es la Escuela Jorge Prieto.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Antunes, and I'm here. I'm a leader in the Belmont Cragen neighborhood. I am a part of Communities United for Quality Education, and I'm also representing my school, Dr. Jorge Prieto.
Yo vengo a pedirles, por favor, que no se escuchen a las escuelas públicas, porque en mi escuela hace un año vinieron a hablar con ustedes y fueron ignorados.
We're here to ask you to listen to our communities. Last year, our school came here to ask for help and were ignored.
Las consecuencias las está pagando mi hija. Mi hija está en un salón con 60 compañeros y tiene aparte un salón que está en el pasillo que les están dando clases sentados en el piso. ¿Ustedes creen que eso es justo?
So because you ignored our school last year, my daughter is paying the consequences this year. She's in a classroom with 60 students, and there's another classroom that they don't have space, so they're being taught on the hallway, and they're being taught on the floor. Do you think that's fair?
Nosotros como padres de la comunidad de Belmont Cragen no estamos de acuerdo con que se abran nuevas escuelas charter. Ese dinero que se va a invertir en esas escuelas, que nos lo inviertan en nuestras escuelas que ya tenemos en existencia. Que vean las necesidades que tiene cada escuela.
So in Belmont Cragen, our community is against bringing new charter schools. Instead, what we want is for you to use the money that you're going to invest in new charter schools and invest that in existing neighborhoods. For you to look at what the needs are in our neighborhoods, on our existing neighborhood schools.
Ms. Antunes, excuse me, can you please conclude?
Ok, yo les hago una invitación cordial a los de la mesa directiva o a quien corresponda para que asistan a nuestras escuelas y vean con sus propios ojos que no estamos mintiendo, que estamos pidiendo algo justo para nuestros hijos. ¿Cómo es posible? Otra pregunta, ¿cómo es posible que a una comunidad de gente que tiene dinero pidió lo mismo que nosotros y ellos les dieron 20 millones para hacer una nueva, no nueva escuela, pero un nuevo anexo a su escuela y a nosotros nos están
Thank you,
ignorando?
Ms. Antunes.
So she is inviting, the board members and, those that are in charge to come to her school, come to the schools in the Belmont Cragen neighborhood to look at the needs. And also she has one question for you is why is it that when other wealthier neighborhoods parents come here and ask for the same resources for the same problems, they are given $20 million, but when we come from our communities, we are being ignored.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Last call for Aurea Alterio. And last call for speaker 58, please, Rosita Shatunda. Mr. President, that concludes the public participation segment.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I'd now like to take this opportunity to ask board members to if they have any reactions to our public comment period today.
I do. I would like to start some general comments. First of all, you know, we support the efforts of the Healthy School Campaign. That's why this policy is before us. And if it affects learning, it becomes also our responsibility, so it will be addressed. I also wanted to mention Dewey, which was the first speaker, because I visited with the LSC chair. I visited with the LSC chair an AUSL school, and that brought, you know, the transformation. So I'm glad it's working for them. I also want to mention that we know the history of Ames as a community school, but we're also aware of the demographic changes. So we have to come up with the best solution. And my final statement has to do with overcrowding. I was at Midway, several overcrowded schools, including Edwards. I was a principal of an overcrowded school, and we care deeply about this. It is our priority. We're going to take a look at facilities and the quality of instruction, which go together. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Bird Bennett, a number of the comments obviously were related to the overcrowding that Carlos just talked about. Does your team just want to make a comment, at least in terms of strategy on the go forward for addressing the overcrowding issue? It's obviously not just to a single school.
So we have Todd Babbitts, who's been working on the overall 10-year education facilities plan, as well in coordination with Tim Cawley, who's been working on our capital plan. Given the overcrowding, we don't take that lightly either. We totally understand it. It's not the environment nor the conditions that we want for our children. However, in order to be deliberate and thoughtful and purposeful, we need to come to this board with a plan rather than a knee-jerk reaction to the overcrowding, and we plan to bring that to this board. Todd?
Thank you, members of the board, President Vitale. As we all know, we've got a large number of our schools right now that are really suffering due to their crowding issues. We heard a lot about it today. We've got kids that are studying in hallways and gymnasiums and auditoriums. We've got kids that are studying in what used to be libraries, where walls that don't go all the way up to the ceiling have divided the space, which can really affect the quality of the instruction due to a lack of sound barrier. We have schools where every single room is being used for a general education homeroom, or a homeroom, leaving no room for art spaces, music spaces, and other important services. And in many of these schools, what we see, and we heard about it today, is oversized classrooms where we have more than 30 students in a room just to make the space work. And in many instances, they're split grade classrooms as well, where we have students of multiple grade levels in the room, again, just to make the space they have work. We have parents at places like Edwards that need to travel to multiple locations to drop off students and pick them up. Principals that have no offices, staff lounges that are in converted closets. We have lunch times that often begin around 10 a.m., 10:30, earlier than most of us would consider appropriate, because there isn't enough lunchroom space to serve the number of students that they have in the building at one time. And we have young children that are moving from mobile units to main buildings throughout the course of the day. We heard that as well. Those of us that have visited those schools, which are all of the staff members and the board members as well, really recognize this as a very significant problem. And where we'd ideally be at as a district is we would have resolved all of those issues and we'd be looking forward to the next ones to come. We have schools that aren't overcrowded today, but we can look ahead at enrollment trajectories and see that there are going to be problems as well. Maybe next year, maybe in 3 years. Right now, we heard from 3 or 4 schools today. We've heard from schools at past board meetings, but let's make no mistake. We, right now, have 78 schools that are overcrowded by our standards. Some of those have had some of their space pressures relieved through leases and mobile classrooms, but even those schools suffer from space constraints. And even if we took those spaces into account, the number would be 46. It's several dozen schools, not just the ones that we heard today. And decisions as to how we would use our very limited capital resources are extremely challenging. You can imagine that every time we make an announcement that helps one school, there are 77 others that say, why wasn't it me? And that's not to minimize the crisis that those other schools are facing. They're all facing a space crisis. And we hear from many schools that are less than what we consider to be overcrowded, that they also have space pressures. Just like we heard about our underutilized schools, that the numbers alone don't tell the whole story, we hear that at the other end of the spectrum as well. We've been working hard to make a dent in the problem. We've provided space relief that may be temporary, it may be permanent, to about 33 schools over the course of the last year. Doesn't mean that it solves the problem for those schools. You heard about the lease that is new for this year to help Edwards as just one example. And Edwards also comes before us, and I think rightly so, saying this doesn't permanently address our crowding issues. We are still in need of help. So we are working hard as a team to continue to work on prioritization, but also to continue to work on the financial resources necessary to make things fundamentally better across the board. We've been working hard with state legislators and local legislators to identify more money to help resolve the issue. As I think everybody in this room should know, our capital budgets right now, due to the financial pressures that we face, are, if you don't account for state money or TIF money, in the neighborhood of $200 million a year. That's not enough just to keep up with the repair needs of this district. And that $200 million includes $20 million that's been allocated to overcrowding relief. $20 million essentially funds one annex per year. One annex per year. So it will help, but it certainly doesn't help the 78 or more schools that right now need space relief. And so we are going to continue to work as hard as we can to make sure that we are making the soundest decisions possible and that we are doing everything we can to work with those who may be able to help us financially accelerate the pace of improvement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Jesse?
Just more so a comment, because there seems to be a few speakers who were frustrated that they don't get an opportunity, and I talked to a few on my way up here this morning in the lobby, that they don't get an opportunity to talk to us more casually without all these microphones and things face to face, and it just, we do have board office hours, and they can be extended if the overwhelming demand is there. Please call 773-553-1600. Make appointments to talk to us. We can never guarantee results, but we should guarantee that we will always listen and take the time to meet with you and hear your concerns and get them addressed to the best we can. So please take up that opportunity to call and speak to us. And it's better than discourse and screaming across a podium. I think we'll get more done that way.
Other questions or comments about, I just have one. Barbara, if somebody could confirm, I thought our policy did eliminate sugared fruit drinks in our schools, and if somebody could confirm whether that has changed or not.
We did at the
You're
state
absolutely
level, too.
correct, President Vitale, and I have a member, I've talked to Tim Cawley. We're going to investigate that to determine why, if in fact there are exceptions happening at schools, and to rectify that immediately. But we do have a board policy, and to my knowledge, it's not been changed as well.
In fact, CPS was ahead of the state doing so when we did it like in 2005.
Yeah, well, I did it, so that's why I'm asking if it's still in place when I was here before. I was just curious whether we've changed it or not. And I just, one last comment on the overcrowding. This is Todd has laid out the challenge, and it is an extraordinary one. And we do feel for every school that is facing this challenge. Almost every board member here has been out to see the challenges that these schools happen. But, you know, it's particularly complicated when, you know, we basically have build assets with 30 to 40-year lives. And that's our school buildings, but as we know, some of those extend to 70 or 80 years, when in fact we have demographic changes that happen in a decade. And that is part of the challenge that we face in responding to this challenge. It's not an excuse, but it is a reality of why this is so difficult to deal with. And so I appreciate the management spending the time and effort to really dig into it, and for the relief they've been able to provide so far, that we've been able to collectively provide so far. But it is an important issue, and one that I think for those of us who've been out to schools, we really need to find solutions. We have a generation of kids that are being impacted. With that, I would ask fellow board members if they have any questions with respect to open agenda items that we intend to vote on, that are on the agenda. Okay, hearing none. Dr. Beenan, do you have a motion?
I move for the passage of motion number 13-1120-M01 and the commencement of a closed session to consider the subjects specified in the motion.
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with the roll call, Mr. President. Dr. Beenan.
Aye.
Vice President Reese.
Yes.
Board Member Quazza.
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia.
Yes.
President Vitale.
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays.
We'll now proceed to closed session. Thank you.